In today's world, standing up for what's right can sometimes mean standing against powerful forces. This is the case of Naledi Pandor, who is leading the charge against Israel at the International Court of Justice, accusing it of genocide in Gaza. However, Naledi Pandor recently stated that Israeli spies have been after her life ever since. Are the allegations true? Can evidence back them up? In this video, we are going to explore these claims and their responses so far. Stick around as we uncover the explosive allegations, the backlash from Israeli leaders, and what to make of the fallout as diplomats point fingers. You'll also understand the broader impacts and why this story has grabbed global headlines. The relationship between South Africa and Israel has been strained, especially since the war in Gaza intensified. South Africa has taken a bold stand, spotlighting the severe crisis unfolding in Gaza. They've raised their voice against what they describe as genocide happening on the ground, where innocent Palestinians, including women and children, find themselves caught in relentless bombings, a situation that starkly disregards international human rights and laws. At the heart of South Africa's outcry is Naledi Pandor, the country's foreign minister, who hasn't shied away from speaking out loud and clear. Pandor's criticism of Israel isn't just about the immediate violence. It's deeply rooted in her condemnation of Israel's ongoing occupation of Palestinian lands. What makes her stance even more powerful is her comparison of Israel's actions to South Africa's dark past under the apartheid system. This isn't a comparison made lightly. Apartheid in South Africa was a period marked by extreme racial segregation and discrimination, enforced through brutal state policies and practices. By drawing this parallel, Pandor isn't just critiquing Israel's current military actions. She's challenging the very foundation of how Israel is interacting with the Palestinian people. Naledi Pandor shared her perspective with clarity and resolve in a powerful address back in November 2023. She began by dismissing the insults hurled at her, likening them to ineffective attempts to undermine her stance with baseless accusations. Pandor emphasized her upbringing, which taught her the insignificance of insults from those who lack substantive arguments. She then shifted the focus to the harsh realities faced by the Palestinian people, highlighting the denial of their basic human rights and freedoms, a situation she finds deeply unjust and reminiscent of the struggles faced by South Africans under apartheid. She criticized the collective punishment imposed on Palestinians by Israel, describing it as an ongoing affront that the international community has allowed to persist for far too long. She pointed out the dire need for accountability, suggesting that actions resulting in the harm of innocent civilians, especially children and the elderly, should prompt the International Criminal Court to issue arrest warrants for those responsible, including prominent Israeli figures. Her speech also underscored the gravity of the situation in Palestine, emphasizing the violations of international law committed by both Israel and Hamas. She highlighted the long-standing illegal occupation of Palestine by Israel as a root cause of the ongoing conflict and bitterness between the two sides. Pandor points out that the violence faced by the Palestinian people is not a new development, but a continuation of decades of oppression. She draws parallels between the current situation and historical atrocities, such as the genocide in Rwanda in 1994 and the mass terminations during the Second World War, to illustrate the international community's failure to prevent such cruelties from recurring. Pandor criticizes the international system, including the United Nations and human rights mechanisms, for their ineffectiveness and selective application, which she argues has led to questioning their validity in protecting the rights and lives of the oppressed. The foreign minister calls attention to the need for accountability, specifically mentioning the International Criminal Court's role in issuing arrest warrants for those responsible for egregious violations of international criminal law. Her speech reflects a deep concern for the human rights of the Palestinian people and a call for immediate and effective action to address the injustices they face. In the continuation of her speech, Naledi Pandor discussed the challenges of acknowledging the atrocities occurring in the conflict between Israel and Palestine, even within her own country, South Africa. She shares a personal lesson about ignoring insults and staying focused on the truth, emphasizing her commitment to a two-state solution where both Israel and Palestine can coexist peacefully. This stance aligns with the long-standing position of the African National Congress, highlighting their early support for Palestinian rights. Pandor criticizes those who deny the existence of apartheid conditions for Palestinians, detailing the restrictions and injustices they face, such as living in confined areas, property seizures without compensation, and constant identity checks. She argues that these conditions are akin to an apartheid state, challenging those who attempt to downplay the severity of the situation. She underscores the importance of speaking out against oppression and correcting misinformation, specifically addressing the spread of false narratives and the denial of documented events like the bombing of hospitals. Pandor's speech is a call to acknowledge the reality of the situation, advocating for the rights of the oppressed and the need for a truthful dialogue about the conflict. On the flip side, Israel maintains that its actions are in self-defense, arguing against South Africa's efforts, which, from their perspective, seem to undermine this right. This fundamental disagreement has significantly soured relations between the two nations. The conflict has escalated to a point where South Africa has taken the unprecedented step of bringing Israel before the International Court of Justice to address the grave issues stemming from the war in Gaza. This legal action highlights the intense bombardments and military operations in Gaza, which South Africa argues that it violates international laws and human rights, affecting countless innocent lives. The International Court of Justice's preliminary ruling, while not a final judgment, has drawn significant international attention. It serves as an initial step in the legal process, evaluating the claims and determining the measures Israel must take to comply with international law, including preventing harm to civilians and ensuring the provision of humanitarian aid. The International Court made a landmark decision against Israel. This preliminary judgment by the court has laid down 6 urgent actions. These include orders for Israel to actively prevent any acts that could be considered genocidal, to halt and penalize direct public encouragements of genocide, and to swiftly ensure that civilians in Gaza receive the humanitarian aid they desperately need. Moreover, Israel is compelled to safeguard evidence that could point to genocide and to report back to the court within a month, detailing the steps it has taken to adhere to these orders. South Africa's move serves as a stark reminder to powerful nations of their responsibilities and actions, or lack thereof, regarding Israel. This bold step by South Africa not only challenges Israel, but also calls into question the global community's willingness to address serious allegations of human rights violations. Pandor has expressed fears for her safety and that of her children, highlighting the intimidation tactics purportedly used by Israeli intelligence agents. This alarming situation came to light in February during an interview with Sala Media, a Johannesburg radio station, after the State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Pandor shared her concerns, stating that the threats had prompted her to discuss security measures with the police. She emphasized the need for increased security, not just for her safety, but more so for her family's protection, given that some threats specifically mentioned her children. This scenario, according to Pandor, is indicative of the methods employed by Israeli intelligence services aimed at intimidating those who speak out or take a stand on issues concerning Israel. Despite the threats and the potential danger, Pandor remains unwavering in her commitment to the cause she supports. She insists that such intimidation tactics will not deter her, underlining the importance of continuing to advocate for justice and human rights without fear. In response to the threats reported by Pandor, Israeli authorities have categorically denied any involvement. Israel's Foreign Affairs Ministry called the allegations baseless early last month, firmly rejecting the notion that they were attempting to threaten Minister Pandor. The Israeli statement went further, accusing the South African minister of aligning with Hamas. Israel criticized South Africa's stance as undermining its right to self-defense, particularly pointing to South Africa's supposed support for Hamas and Iran's interests in both the Middle East and Africa. The Israeli response highlighted the tension and conflict between the narratives of the two nations, emphasizing the casualties on both sides of the conflict. Israeli officials reported significant casualties resulting from Hamas attacks, while Palestinian sources provided staggering figures for the loss of life and injuries resulting from Israeli military actions. This exchange underscores the deeply entrenched positions on both sides, with each accusing the other of exacerbating the violence and suffering in the ongoing conflict. Note that some 100 Palestinians who were trying to reach a relief convoy in Gaza were terminated at the beginning of March by Israeli forces. Israel blamed most of the deaths on crowds that swarmed around aid trucks, saying most victims were trampled or run over. They also said Israeli forces later opened fire on protesters they believed to be a threat. The situation surrounding Naledi Pandor and the International Court of Justice's ruling against Israel brings to light significant concerns on the international stage. Pandor's claim that Israel has disregarded the International Court of Justice's directive, particularly after the January 26 ruling, underscores a critical challenge in enforcing international law and the repercussions for global diplomacy. This scenario poses profound questions about the effectiveness of international legal mechanisms in curbing state conduct, especially in matters involving human rights and international humanitarian law. The implications of this case and the threats against Pandor extend far into the realms of international diplomacy and South Africa's foreign policy. It highlights the growing tensions between South Africa and Israel, potentially influencing South Africa's relations with other nations, especially those with vested interests in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Moreover, this situation could affect the global perception of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, possibly galvanizing support for Palestine or, conversely, creating further divisions among international actors regarding the conflict. As demonstrated by Naledi Pandor's unwavering courage in the face of threats and intimidation, the case demonstrates the critical relevance of advocating for justice and human rights. This situation encourages a broader discussion on how international law can be effectively applied and respected by all parties, aiming for a resolution that upholds human dignity and rights. Engaging in these discussions is essential for the international community to navigate the complexities of global conflicts and strive toward a more just and peaceful world order. What are your thoughts on the Naledi Pandor stance and its impact on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Do you believe Israel can harm the minister or her family members? Share your insights and opinions in the comments section below. If you found this discussion enlightening, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the New Tourist channel. Do not forget to turn on notifications too, so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in our next video.